Thank you for joining us on Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 131. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. The gang's all here. Mike and John and Kristen and Luff and Don and Mike and John and Mike and John and Mike and John and Mike and John. We're going to talk about slot cars.
Lots of
Usually,
ons.
we'll start with show and tell. So if you have something to show and tell, raise your virtual hand. Before we start the show and tells, I want to remind our viewers that if you want to participate, as long as you participate in some facet of any slot car hobby, whatever the scale, whatever the speed, whatever the type, you are absolutely welcome to join us. And to join us, you simply do a Google search for Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom. Ignore the video results, and you will find any number of forum posts where I will share the link to join the day before or the day of. We always meet on Wednesdays. We alternate between early and late so that people around the world can participate at an appropriate time. But everyone is welcome. If you want to race and talk about slot cars, come and join us.
Hey, you were talking about the scale of cars that we feature on here or don't feature. I thought I was in a 1-to-1 slot car 2 days ago. I was going down the street and they had a cutout in the middle of the street for probably 8 blocks. And I went, oh, I wish I had a flag right now. I could really wrap this out.
You just let go of the wheel and put the pedal to the metal. Yeah, maybe someday we'll have our self-driving cars that don't get into accidents. So that out of the way, let's get to Mr. Sampson, who has his hand up. What would you like to share today, Dennis?
I've been busy with some old restorations, and I thought that maybe you guys would like to see them.
Very nice.
These are, when I turn them over, you'll see that they are
they're the set cars.
The set cars, yeah. I managed a couple of years back. In fact, these things have been sitting in my to-do box for maybe 2.5 years. And I got onto them this week. But I bought them as a pair from a guy on eBay, and they lay in my box, and then maybe 6 months back I put some decent tires on them, and then this week I decided, you know what, these things need to be done. So they're as close to complete as I can get them right now. I don't have any exhaust pipes for the Ferrari yet. I'll have to work out what I'm going to do there. I painted this in the alternate colors and gave it Lorenzo Bandini helmet because my kit version with the brass chassis is a red one with Surtees in it.
Yeah, Dennis, I don't think the set cars came with exhaust.
I don't think they did either.
No.
Come to think of it, so I may just leave it the way it is.
The other question I had for you, sorry to interrupt, is the set cars also had 2 pins, one in the back and one in the front.
Oh yeah, I've cut those pins off because it makes for horrible handling on my track. But you could see right there in between those 2 holes, there's a little mark where I cut the pin off. Because I did try them that way, and because you get no slide as you come through the turn, the car just falls over. And it was absolutely horrible to drive. But without those pins and with some of Art from Dart Hobby, with some of his urethanes on the back, they actually drive really nicely. So I cut them off.
Nice.
The only thing I've still got to do is to swap out the transmission cover on the Lotus, because I have a Ferrari transmission cover in there at the moment.
Is that a Jim Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird that what Monogram did in these cases, because the transmission covers, there are 2. There is that one, which I guess is a Colotti or somebody else's transmission, the Italian one. And then they have another one, which is the Lotus one. And they have the 2 different ones for the 2 different cars. But both cars have got the 6-spoke wheels, which actually were the Lotus wheels and not the Ferrari wheels. So they got it right in one spot and not in the other. But I mean, you know, unless you're a nitpicker and a bean counter or a rivet counter like me, you wouldn't know that. But anyway, there they are. They're looking good. And so I was happy with them.
Yeah, look great as always.
Before you jumped on, we were talking about the Ulster How do you pronounce the Ostereo?
Osterero?
Osterero.
cars. Have
Yeah.
you seen those? Have you done any work on those?
Yes.
And
And what do you think of them?
Well, now this is where I have to get diplomatic.
okay,
If you're a collector of shelf queens, they
Got
are
it.
beautiful cars.
right.
If you're somebody who wants to run their cars, then you have two choices. You either run them and accept all the breakages, or you don't run them. I
Right.
mean, because mechanically the Osterero cars are very fragile. Some of them actually work quite well. They have pretty reasonable tires and things like that, but the quality of the mechanicals is really not up to the quality of the bodies by any manner of means. And for that kind of price, it's horrible.
All right. Thank you for that feedback on those cars. And next up on Show and Tell is Jim. Go ahead, Mr. Rose.
I think I showed you this track last week. This is Ted
Mhm.
S's track in near Sacramento, California, and we finally got on it.
Cool. Looks
Tree
really
line.
nice. Now you put down some laps and get some rubber on there.
Yeah, so that's the track. We were running with a Can-Am car. We were running very low fives with a Group C car. We're running around 5.5 and a lot of traction. He did spray glue it very, very lightly originally, but he took it all off. But it's got a lot of traction, so it's going to be fun to run on.
Yeah, I see my buddy Herman and
Yep.
Ian there, and Mario.
Jim, does it run in both directions or just one?
Well, the direction you saw is the intended direction. I'm not sure if you'll ever change it or not, but yeah, I don't know if it would run very well because you go under the bridge into the hairpin. It might not be user friendly to go backwards.
Looks like a great home track. And that's going to be one of your tracks that your group rotates into? Or?
Yep, hopefully. And it's a Bob Scott built track. Bob Scott's got a new video on the Electric Dream site, which I haven't watched yet. So big interview with Bob Scott, but he's the builder.
Good deal. Love seeing new tracks. All right, Mikey, you are up next, sir.
I don't remember if I showed these or not, the new cars.
Oh yeah, you were asking about them. Have you investigated chipping yet?
Well, yes, they are. If you look really close, you can see underneath the driver, you can just barely get a chip in there.
Yep.
And here's the march. You can see he's sitting on the chip and he's a little elevated,
Yep.
but not terrible. The BRM is a little more elevated, above the roll bar. But I love them. They are some of the best F1 cars I've ever used. They dispense with the Policar transmission that they use in the modern F1s, and they brake a lot better, and they're just a ball. I fit them with G25 1172 G25 tires, and they grip like crazy and just really, really good fun.
What do you mean that they dispense with the gearing?
They don't use the double shaft, I think.
No, they do.
You do.
They do.
Oh yeah, all of them do. That's where it
Okay.
started.
In these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So what chip?
But
chip
what they
do
have-
you use?
But what they have done over the last little while, and particularly on the BRM, you'll see it. They went away from a smooth motor shaft and a push-on a brass pinion, and they use a motor with a knurled shaft and a little molded bevel pinion. And
Yeah, I saw the beveled pinion.
and that is very, very smooth now. But
Yeah.
they've done a little bit of tweaking here and there, but those transmissions work very, very well.
Yeah, they're really quiet,
Mhm.
and on these the brakes are so much better than the modern F1s. I was amazed.
They're probably they're not as heavy.
It not that much. I mean, really, it's a supremely noticeable difference. I mean, it breaks almost too much in some cases.
That may be up to the traction of the tires then, or the pressure on the braid or something.
Well, actually, that'd be interesting because the tires are narrower, the ones that I've on there, than the 1224 G25, 1224 number G25 tires are on the F1s.
Yeah.
And these are 1172, so they're narrower and slightly smaller diameter. So that may just be a gear ratio thing, but it's like a completely different driving car. I did a video on the two of them, and it's or the three of them rather, on all three together, and I was just amazed at the difference. But anyway, they're great cars. I really.
What chip did you end up putting in them?
Pardon me?
What chip did you end up putting in them?
The original
F1 soldering
chip
chip?
that Scalextrics had.
Yeah,
You know, the
5007.
small F1 chip.
Yeah.
What is it? Oh, wait a minute. I'll get the number.
No worries. Just the original retrofit F1 chip, single seater
Yeah,
chip.
the original retrofit chip, the small one with the separate fly lead for the infrared.
Yep.
And it worked, but it was tight, really, really tight.
Where'd you end up putting the LED?
In front, let's see on the BRM, I show it in the video. You have to drill through the center of the suspension mount and actually take part of the upper suspension mount out.
Okay,
To
like
drill
where,
the hole.
like what Harry did for the wiring.
Mhm.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, he took a chunk
Yeah.
out of the suspension.
Yeah, it's probably a good place to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And on the March, as you can see here, it's in front of the guide.
You go right up the front.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. That worked out really well.
Yeah.
The March was much easier to chip.
That's
A little
Ronnie's
bit more
car.
room and that.
That's Ronnie's car. The
No, it's
yellow
Mike's
one.
car.
I
Yeah.
know, I see it's a copy of the Ronnie's car.
Yeah.
Yep.
How
Yeah.
does that chip differ than the oxygen chip?
Oxygen is wireless. Those are not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Sure.
Yeah, and it's proprietary for Scalextrics. It's SSD only.
Mike,
Can,
So you,
can I see the car?
sure.
Mike, the difference in weight between
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
BRM and one of the monopostos is 15 grams.
The first car he drove in Formula One.
Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The BRM is 15 grams heavier than the monoposto?
No, the
No.
monopostos are 15 grams heavier than the BRM.
Okay, so it has more inertia, so you think
Yeah,
it
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The BRM is, I mean, it only weighs 50 grams, that car.
It's just a joy to drive. I mean, and if anybody has any ideas, you, Dennis, especially, of something I can use for a ghost car that's relatively inexpensive, as a magnet car. I don't want to set one of these up as magnet cars because it's like a waste, because it's such a nice car.
Do you see
Is there
this
some
one?
other cheaper, brand that could that in the
And you-
same era?
And you want a Formula One?
classic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Scalextric made a bunch.
the same era Formula One that would be
Maybe
comparable.
maybe
So-
one of the
Is-
maybe one of the Scalextric cars.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe several.
do you see this car, picture?
Yeah.
That's Ronnie and my relative. My relative work as a manager with Ronnie.
Cool.
Sven-Erik Eriksson. He was
Neat.
in 63. He worked with my father in racing.
That's
I
so
have this
cool.
picture on my wall in the living room today.
Neat.
Very cool.
Wow.
All right. Does anybody else have any show and tell they want to do?
I have some cars. If
Okay,
you
go ahead,
want to
Christoph.
see,
Go ahead, Christopher.
oh, yeah, I can do that. Wait, I put the picture aside. My new Alfa Romeo in 124 GTM AM.
Nice.
That's what I was asking. Yeah.
Oh,
There we go.
so that's
It's customer built to a race driver. His father drove this car against my father in, I think, 69 or something like that. So
wow.
I rebuilt it, and in 124, the guys is coming up and race on our wood track, the old race drivers. So they bought some controllers and cars and everything. And the next car is my father's teammate, Rune Tobiasson. He won this class in Group 2, 70. This car is, sadly to say, an accident happened in Sweden. 6 people get killed, 34 get wounded in the last race in the Swedish Championship. He won the total race and get the Swedish Championship. And it's sad to build it, but I think it's one of the kind. It's the first Swedish Championship on tarmac with the BMW team. And Rune is was a friend to my father. My father is not still alive, but Rune is. And but this was a sad accident happened, and nobody had done this car in 143 as a model or something like that. But I have built it, and the guy want to have it. So
Was that 124?
it's a 124. And this is my race car in 124 sports cars. It's a Can-Am,
Mhm.
McLaren.
Yeah, not just any Can-Am. The MHF. Yeah.
It's Danaher.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's sad. I have not so good picture to show it, but it's very interesting chassis on this. We can change the distribution of the weight.
Who makes that chassis?
Early it was Works, but Rudiger today is not do anything, and Matthias Park and him did that, but they separate and go to different direction in produce things. But it's very nice chassis. You can change the
Yeah, very nice.
distribution.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it go very, very fast, this car. I like it. Danny Halm is a favorite to me, but 73, he take the victory of Ronnie in Sweden. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful cars. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. So I wanted to share
I-
something. Go ahead. Are you
I
still?
have one more car.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, anybody know you?
Oh no!
It's no problem. This is a Lexan body. Anybody like Joachim Bonniers
Bonnier,
Bonnier?
yeah,
car?
McLaren.
No, is it that? Are you sure? I don't know.
It looks
This
like
car is
it looks
really-
like the McLaren that had the Ford 4-cam engine in the back.
Okay. This
Yeah,
car is
that was
really
actually
from-
1966. Yes.
Yeah, an M1 or an
That was the
No,
first.
no,
that was the
M2, I
first
think.
McLaren Formula One car. You're absolutely right, Dennis.
McLaren M2, the one that they used in the movie Grand Prix.
Correct.
That they
yeah.
Okay.
that they painted white and green.
Yeah,
What you
this
doing, yeah?
car is Joke's car. And Niels, I think Dennis know him,
Yes,
in Denmark, built this chassis and car and that. Oh, wait.
Niels
Do that-
Christensen. Yeah,
Yeah, he built the car. Is
yeah, it's
Yes.
built to the Danish retro Formula One rules.
Yeah.
that he set up.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah. So it's very lovely cars to drive on the
Beautiful.
wood tracks and so on. Yeah, so it is. Okay, all for me.
Thanks.
Well, again,
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
beautiful cars. Thanks for sharing them, Krister. I wanted to do a quick share. This is not my thing, and some of you have probably already seen this, but I thought it was worth sharing because it's just super cool. This is Martin Kaz or whatever, 1/300th scale and 1/220th scale, basically magnet motion cars. So if you go to this thread on Slot Forum, which I'll put a link into the chat and the description, it shows the process from start to finish. And this is a technology that model railroaders have been using, and it's basically a printed circuit board that is basically electromagnets, and then you put a series of magnets into the car, and then your electronics and computer software controls the electrification of the track to make the cars move around. And so this is early on when he was just getting the functionality going. But everybody was like, well, how is it slot cars if it's just going real slow? But no, he did the necessary to come up with speed controllers, and he can set his software to have speed limits in the turn, so it automatically will slow your car down to an appropriate speed so it doesn't come out of the turns. Or he can turn off the speed control so that if you go too fast in the turns, it will come out just like any other magnet racing car. It will just suddenly come off the track because you went too fast. And I just think this is super cool. And the main reason I wanted to share it is because if you look at this, I mean, at first it looks like a regular slot car track until you pay attention to the decorations on the infield. A clothespin and a coin and a pencil and a battery. And in this video, he even holds one on his finger to show you how big they actually are. And you can see him jumping to the magnets when he puts them down. And then
Wow.
little races and stuff. I think that is just absolutely fantastic.
Wow. That's a very, very, very interesting. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna drop the link into the chat and to the description so you guys can check that out if you haven't already seen it.
Sure.
The thread is, from start to finish is definitely worth checking out.
Is there individual control for each car, or is it just like a group that's just going around?
Well, it's basically 2 lanes, so it's 2-lane analog. So when he was showing multiple cars, it was basically just multiple cars in 1 lane, just like you can do with analog. And because it's magnet controlled, the cars never change their spacing. They always move at the appropriate speed, and they always maintain that same separation. But yeah, hopefully one of these days he posts a video, showing it being under, human control and the car crashing off at the turn. But yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun. So I felt like showing that off for him on his behalf.
Real cool.
Does anybody else have anything they want to show and tell, or should we move on to Club Corner?
I got a show and tell, Greg.
Alrighty, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, this is another restoration that I did from the same guy who brought me the car last week. This one, a little more sentimental value for me. In the late 80s, we ran a class for these. Is that up?
Not yet.
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
In the late, this is a 32nd scale Formula One car. In the late 80s, we ran a lot of sports cars using Euro toy chassis and International 15 chassis and stuff like that. One of the guys that was a regular at Ernie's owned a metal shop. He does EDM and laser cut and stamping. So he decided he was going to stamp out some chassis, and we ran these with Group 12 motors. And interestingly enough, it looks big. It is exactly the same wheelbase and width The width of the pans are just a snick under the width of an NSR Formula One car.
A question, is this a C can on that car?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
this is, we
Yeah,
ran
that's
these
okay.
in 88, 89, and 90.
Yeah, I see.
I-
We drove that in the 70s, the setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they went a little longer than that, but yeah, no, this was great. I had 3 or 4 of these things, and for the life of me, I have no idea where they went. This is a 2-piece chassis. There's a pan section here that sits on top of the base plate. A little motor carrier in the back. We originally ran them with 72 pitch 101 gears, but the crowns on those things were steel and they used to eat pinions. So I've switched this to an S&K pinion and an S&K crown gear on the thing. So I thought it was going to be big, but it's actually no bigger whatsoever than an NSR Formula One car.
Do you have one of the bodies?
I do. 1 second. What I have is these all ran on clear plastic bodies.
Yeah.
And the one that came with the car was a disaster. I talked to the guys at Beta and Classic, and they still have all the old molds.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Minardi that they sent to me. So I'm going to cut this all out and paint this up, and you know, with a little. Hang on 1 sec, guys. Let me call you back. With a little bit of detail and the driver done and stuff like that, they look, you know, they look fine, and they're tiny enough that going around the track as fast as they go around the track, because with a Group 12 motor and sponge tires, they really hop around.
It
pretty
was
quick.
good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're and this was one of our. It was interesting. I was talking to Ernie last week, and we said, "Geez, wouldn't it be great if we could resurrect that chassis? Because these things handled great, and they were just so much fun." Anyway,
Nice.
that's it for me.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that
Memory
body
lane.
painted up.
I have a question. Anybody know what kind of car this is? The mark, the brand? Anybody see a slot car like this?
The Skoda.
Nej.
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
BMW Gloss.
No, not glass. BMW 700 CS.
Ah,
Oh, wow.
This is a copy of my father's race car from '63.
Hey, wow.
cool.
Who made the body?
It is pretty.
I think it's from Germany. It's from Dieter Jans. It's this one is a resin body, and I have a glass fiber body that I'm going to build the car my father raced before this year, '62.
Hmm.
It's going to be red. But this car is BMW 700 CS. I think it's very unique.
Very unique.
I think nobody in 132 or 134 have done that before. And I see Michael Niemas have done some things with this. But I was lucky to have a glass fiber body, because I telephoned Dieter and say, hey, we have to do something that's lighter than this resin body, because it's go very slow. It's very nice chassis under it. It's a Dieter chassis under it, and it goes very well. It's a small car, and I think if you compare with the Alpha and 2002, and so it's 1/2 of a second slower, but it's a smaller car, but very lovely to drive. So it is. Only wonder if anybody have seen this car before.
Apparently not. Love it.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I guess it's time to move on to Club Corner. So if you have any past, present, or future more than you driving by yourself activity of slot car racing, now is the time to talk about it. Dewan is ready to go. Go ahead, Dewan.
Okay, well, this past weekend, I was playing host to, I'm the vice president of, or vice chair of the Alumni Association for my high school. And it wasn't my actual graduating class, but it was part of my high school. So they were coming to Vegas, and I offered to host a barbecue and entertainment. And obviously part of the entertainment was slot car track and racing and all that stuff we had. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. I did, we talked about the format of the racing competition that I was gonna do, and I'll start off by, I'll explain that. Let me just get the screen share going real quick so you can see what we have. I think this should do it.
I'm just glad you had time to take pictures. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, and you know what? I had it set up. Well, can you see the first screen there?
Yep.
Okay, I know it's sideways. I didn't get a chance to reorientate anything, but initially, okay, so what I had is I had 8 groups of cars with a minimum of 4 cars per group. And this one was supposed to have been the Porsche convertibles, but one of the convertibles, the guy just kept discharging. It wouldn't keep the braids in place for anyway. So I got tired of working on it. Just put another Porsche there to take paid. But it was still, they're all Carreras, so they're all kind of somewhat in the same class. But, and what we had is I had 8 containers with a sign-up sheet for those that wanted to pick out a class of car that they wanted to participate in a 4-man race. And so that would yield as much as 8 winners, and then we have the winners will go to the semifinals and narrow it down to the top 2, and then it'd be a face-off for the top 2. That was the initial concept, but the activities, being host, kind of got away from me, and we didn't get to the slot car portion until way towards the end of the thing. That probably about half the participants had left. We had about 50 people initially. By the time we got around to the slot cars, probably about 25, 30 people. So we ended up with 16 racers. So we had 4 primary qualifying events. And then we just had the winners of those had a championship roll off, and I gave the champion a gift. And it was pretty simple. That's what we did. Well, let me show you this. This is
All right.
This doesn't rotate. Why is it not rotating now? Oh boy, I hate when this happens. That happened to me last time. It's
It looks like there's a rotate button up on the top of the screen.
It's not my screen. The screen I'm looking at.
You mean go to the next picture?
Yeah, go to the next picture. Oh, there it is. Now, okay, went up. Okay,
Yeah, you got to move over it.
I have my mouse over. Okay, there we go. So yeah, that was race 1 was the Porsches. Race 2 was the Volkswagen Vans. Race 3 was I just put a little mixed breed there. They're all Scalextric inline breeds. Then we had the Carrera trucks, and then the Mini Coopers.
Those Carrera trucks are a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what that turned out to be one of the better races. And
Those things are enormous fun.
Yeah.
How many people took the six-wheelers thinking that more wheels was faster?
In that group, I would have taken the six-wheeler because the six-wheelers go like hell.
They do that. Those are the better handling cars of those F1s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mainly because they're the latest ones and the tires are better.
And I
But
had
not on the
replace-
racetrack, the real racetrack.
So we had to replace the John Player car, and I had to have both of the Alps on there. We had to. It was a little challenging to distinguish the difference between the two. That was a nice little race. And then, where's 7 go? Oh, 7.
We'll make
Seven's missing.
we'll
Yeah.
make the P34 in the 132 scale today.
That's what those two are. Those are the two new scale electric ones.
Okay.
The number 3 car is out of the double set, and the darker blue one at the back is out of the latest version.
Is that the 76 or 77 car?
No, they're still the 76 ones, the early ones.
Anyway,
But, oh, okay.
okay, so those are the 8 classes that they choose, and then they just pick out whatever race they want to be and be one of the 4 drivers, and went from there. So that turned out pretty good.
I'm not sure those legend cars are in the same class as the Ford GTs, 40s.
No, that was a misnomer. I just didn't take those out of there.
76, was Jude still in the team then? Jude Scheckter?
What, repeat the question?
Was Jude Scheckter in the team 76?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Because
Yeah.
77, he went to Wolf.
Yeah. And Ronnie get in the car 77.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah.
I have
Any
one
more
more
pictures, Dewan?
Yeah, I have one more share that I was trying to bring up now, and somehow I can't find my Facebook page. Let me go back to. I have to go back to my screen. Just bear with me one moment. I did have while I'm getting to it, I did have a little glitch. I was using Race Coordinator. Where is my mouse? Oh, there it is. I know I mentioned a few chats back that I had developed a little batch file that allowed me to really on the fly quickly create a new driver to be added to the Race Coordinator, along with voice prompts, or the prompts for each driver's name. So as it's going through, it'll say, John is new race leader, or et cetera, and John's did his fastest lap, or et cetera, things like that. So I had gone through the pre-registration for all the people that had pre-signed up for the this event, and I had even put their pictures next to the names and all that. And somehow, right when I started the race, it says that there was a previous race that wasn't finished. Do you want to restore that race or delete it or something like that? And whichever I chose, ended up deleting everything that I had put in there. So that was a little bit of a. I was a little disappointed at that. But anyway, nonetheless, see if I can do this real quick and share the screen. And where you guys go? Yeah. My mouse. Having multiple screens is such a pain. You lose your mouse. And I should do it. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to do this. Oh, here we go.
We can't hear it unless you hit share sound as well when you do the
I
share.
have to share. Okay.
But I assume there's lots of raucous hooting and hollering going on.
Yeah, hold on. Let me
Yeah, you're going to need to stop the share and then start it over. And at the very bottom of the share screen,
Okay,
there's a
I'll do that.
checkbox that says share audio.
Okay, let me go
sound.
back to that. And try that one more time. And do that. And then share audio. Check that box, and there we go.
Pass it up. Red turn and gas. You gonna be walking? Keep playing with the gas. I can't be walking. I'm getting gas right now.
Stop starting.
Okay, Red. I thought you were red when I said it.
Linda's kid stop starting.
Make the curve slow.
25 seconds left.
3, 2. Okay, everybody's going.
20 seconds left.
I put my phone back on the charger.
20 seconds
Put
left.
my phone back on the charger.
10 seconds left.
Good job, Red. Come around that corner.
Linda's kid stop
Good
starting.
job. Back to it again. 1. I'm off the track. Pass it over.
And so you can see that the race, the lap times, a fast lap on my track is about 3.8 seconds. 3.9 is my record. 3.8 is my record. 3.9. And so you can see these lap times are crazy. But then they were racing the trucks, and you can see also has well, let me, I guess I have to go a little bit further. But,
Okay.
that's what I was talking about. I had all the drivers' names in there and their pictures and everything. It just all disappeared. I had to end up going with generic driver 1, 2, and 3. So it wasn't as entertaining as it could have been. But they were.
I guess that explains that the other day I heard a no, but I didn't know where it was coming from.
So what I want to know, this was in Las Vegas. How many side bets were going on during this?
Right.
Oh, and it was intense competition because it was a $50 certificate to any restaurant, or not any restaurant, about a list of about 20 different restaurants they could go to. That was first prize, and the second prize was a $10 gas card. So yeah, they were intensely, and I mean you could see the flames coming out of people's eyes as it was getting down to the wire. And I had that also as part of just to try to keep the competition, well, just to make sure that everyone was really involved. I had 2 of the races were women only, so that make sure we had some, because every race that the men were in, kind of dominated.
I bet they stayed on longer.
Yes. They did. Well, I'll tell you, one of them took one of my vans. And I have these big, you can see right there, I have a big green chicken wire catch wall.
Mm-hmm.
She launched the thing, it went over the catch wall to the couch and just almost hit my wall. That's the first time I've seen one come off and miss the catch wall. So anyway, we had a ball.
Yeah.
And I did get some inquiries about people wanting, and because I told them this was a vintage set, and many of some of the components of the set were from my original car set that I received when I was 10 years old for Christmas. So that's actually part of the track that's on there. So they were kind of amazed at that process. And then I told them, I had a lot of vintage sets that I was restoring and putting together, and I have a couple of them that's really interested in getting the vintage sets versus some of the newer ones. So it was entertaining, worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Well done.
Thanks for your suggestions as well. It really opened up my mind with a lot of concepts on how to do the competition.
And then you just figure out what that glitch was, but it totally ruined all your.
It was that I know it had to have been that restore, because everything that was not done with my automated batch files was restored. It was restored to that level. So anything that was done with my automated. So I guess I need to do a backup of the. After I do that, I need to make sure that I do a backup, and that would be the restore level if it ever goes back again. So that's But I'm gonna put it on the forum and see if there's been any known issues with things like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll help you figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. And Michael, you are up next, sir.
Two things. Well, first off, we had good races this week, and I tried a bunch of good new cars, and I had a Scalextric Cougar that I put one of the CG slot cars chassis in with an inline pod can drive, and I was truly disappointed in the chassis. It actually got beat by the Challenger Scalextric's stock one, which surprised me. And it was tough to get to run decently. And there was just a lot of problems setting it up. The pods seem to be very, very flexible. The plastic, whatever it is not stiff at all. It's about maybe half the stiffness of a slotted pod. So, for whatever reason, this is
Can
the
you
only
show
one
us
that's
that
right
again? Show us that
Sure.
underneath of that again, Mike. That looks like an Olither, not a.
You're right. It is an Oliver. I'm sorry. Yeah. The
Just
CG
switch-
slot cars one I ordered was the one for the Challenger or for the Barracuda, and it doesn't fit the Challenger. I thought they were going to be both the same, but they weren't. So you're out of stock on them now. If somebody wants one, I've got one.
Can you not just switch in a slotted pod, Mike?
I was gonna say, did you try a slotted pod?
I have not. No, I just raced it on Monday. So I don't have any relevant data on that. I'll probably do a video.
Put slotted pod in there.
Yeah, what was it
Yeah.
doing? Was it chattering a lot or?
It was very tippy for one thing, but it seemed like it was just too flexible to put the power down. And I know that other companies have more flexible pods that work. Thunderslot in particular has a very flexible pod, and that works, but this one did not. So I was disappointed because the Oliver pod assembly is one of the few that you can use a Can-Am drive, which I prefer. So anyway, that's here or there. The other part of Club Corner is that we raced as I said before, we raced the two Polycar Classic F1. They were really wonderful. And then I tried, I don't have it right here right now. I also did an Oliver pod on the Mercedes, but that I used a angle winder on. So it's not really, relevant as far as comparing the two. And that worked well enough for me to have a very close race with a Porsche 911, closer than it looks on the video, because for some reason the Porsche 911 stopped counting laps at a certain point. So we haven't figured out who won yet. I haven't looked at the video to count how many laps and where he lost them, which I'm going to do. So I'll see if he won or I won. Can't tell. It was hard to do, but we had great fun all the way around. So it was good that way. And I think I already said something earlier about my experience at the non-fun racing that I had with the 124 scales. I had a really bad night where I had somebody that just kept putting me in a wall on a regular basis. And after he broke my car, I had to go and sit down and say, this is just plastic toy cars. Really, it's not that important. You get so angry sometimes. You just got to back off and say, okay. And, I'm relatively competitive. I'm okay with getting beat, but I don't like getting slammed on a regular basis. And it was pretty annoying. I paid him back, but you know, that doesn't help.
That's good.
Doesn't make you feel any better.
That's
So,
good.
so the question is, why did you put yourself in a position to be slammed into the wall so often?
Right. Yeah. If you
Um,
knew he
it
was
was-
gonna-
It was one of these things where even if I tried backing off, he would still go into me right there. He would wait, he would back off at the same point and put me in a wall. It was malice aforethought, and I was really annoyed. So, you know, it's racing. He isn't
Do
always
you owe
there.
him money?
So,
I was gonna say, what the heck, dude?
well, yeah, you know, you wonder about that. And, you know, we pay an entry fee for this one. And
There's
the
no
guy
cost,
who
right?
owns the track distributes over evenly. He throws in money into the pot.
Okay.
So, you know, there's a little bit of incentive there, but
There's a pot of any
Still.
kind, therefore there's an incentive.
yeah, that I think that's part of it. And I would rather dispense with that and just have fun racing. But regardless of that, it was a carnage night anyway. Everybody was slammed into the floor a bunch of times. We had cars flying all over the place. It was just craziness. And I don't know what it was that night, whether the track was just off or what, but anyway.
I mean, it sounds like people are realizing that that's going to go unpunished, and
Well,
just
in
dove
this case,
into
it didn't, because he didn't get to do the second race with his car. Unfortunately, the owner of the track lent him a car, and he did quite well with it. So that was somewhat annoying.
This is what happens with an open bar.
Yeah, really.
30-second scale road rage.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's me. Rant over.
that sucks. But at least you had more fun at home with your hard body cars.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. That makes up for it for sure. And I also got noticed that the third guy that I was racing with before is going to be able to race with us again.
Oh, nice.
He did the ultimate thing to get time. He gave notice for his job, and they said, "Oh, why are you leaving?" And he told them, "Because I've got no life." And they figured out a way to give him a life. So we'll be able to see him more often now. So they'll have, as Garth would say, we'll have the three amigos would be back.
Perfect. We'll look forward to some three-man racing then.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And Jim, you're next. He was ready to go. Hit that share button.
So, it's asking me to do something to share sound. I have to put a password in.
That's weird. I don't know why it would do that.
Please restart your audio.
You want to stop and start your share again?
Have you some historical race cars?
It's going. You see it?
Yeah, we can see the
Okay.
picture.
I have no idea whether it's going to play the audio or not, but we'll see.
No.
Yep, there it is.
Did you hear the audio?
Yes.
Okay, so now you know where we are. We're at Fast Track Hobbies in Sacramento. And the owner was there, Dwight, running the show this time because Justin Colvin was out winning an enduro in Bakersfield. And so we ran on the Yellow Dragon, which is our normal track for 30-second scale racing. And incidentally, Fast Track Hobbies is having their 20th anniversary birthday party tomorrow. So it's a big deal. We're all going to go up and play with toy cars, and the tracks are going to be open, and there's going to be a live band, and there's going to be free food, which is why I'm going. And so it'll be a good time. And it's great that a slot car track / hobby shop has actually been around for 20 years. So we ran Group C, and this is the Group C grid. We had 11 cars this weekend. We did tech this weekend. And there's Herman James getting out of the way because his car sorted didn't go through tech until after the bribe money was in. His car had, this specifically says in the rules that you have to run stock wheels. And we put the part numbers there if you want to buy more and have extra wheels and tires. But his car had magnesium wheels. So I let it go through this time, but he knows it's not legal next time.
So that's why the pile of cash was there, eh?
That's why the pile of cash was there. This is the start of the B Main. Ted Essie, who you saw his track before, is looking up at the, he's doing his close-up because they do have a live camera. So he's looking at the camera. Everybody else is watching their cars.
Sorry, Jim, can I just say, that looks like a massively cool hobby store.
Yeah, it's primarily, well, they got everything, but they have some arts and crafts, tons of RC, huge inventory of slot car parts. So yeah, a lot of stuff.
What's the square footage? It looks massive.
Yeah, it's about the size of a small supermarket. It's good size.
Jim, what town is this in? What city?
It's in Rockland, which is about a half hour north of Sacramento, or on the way to Reno to Sacramento.
Yeah.
This is the A main grid. You notice there's only one Porsche, one Jaguar XJR10. I chose to run my Porsche, the one on the right. Ian ran his Marlboro livery. And so we had one Jaguar non-XJR10, one Toyota, and one Herman was running his XJR10. So only one Jaguar XJR10 in the A main. There was another one in the field. And then at the end of the race, yeah, I did well. One of the easiest races I've had, quite frankly. Qualified a half a second faster than everybody and kind of ran away with it.
Why?
One, we had a couple people drop out, and then I let a friend of mine, Larry Stevens, run my Ferrari, the one on the right, the red Ferrari. So he ran that in the race. I didn't run this race. And at the start of the A main, we had 9, so we split up at 5 and 4. Start of the A main, we had 5 drivers, sort of. Here's the actual start of the A main.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, shit.
One guy hooked up backwards. Ted, as you see, is not there.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to go to the restroom right before Dwight said, "Is everybody ready?"
Oh my goodness.
And everybody said, "Yeah, we're ready." So he started the race. As it turned out, well, this is after the first heat. It was this close between Ian and Herman. Ian kind of ran away with this race. He had just kind of like my Group C car. He had the dominant car in F1. But at the end of the race, what happened is we started without Ted. We realized Ted wasn't there, and we threw a track call on the first lap. But all the cars had got about 2/3 of the lap, and the lap counter is about 1/3 of the lap in front of the start-finish line. So when Ted came back, we let him go right in front of the lap counter so he wouldn't be a lap down. So he lost about maybe 1/3 to a half a lap. Herman beat him by 2 feet. So we had a meeting and we decided that we're going to give Ted that extra 2 feet, and Ted got second instead of third, even though Herman was a couple feet ahead of him on the track, but Ted had lost that half a lap in the beginning of the race. So we tried to be cool about it.
It looks like some of the rear wings were a bit askew.
Yes, we have a rule that they have to be firmly attached at the beginning of the race, but we've had recently some, especially on these big tracks, because we're carrying some more speed and we're having wings detach in crashes. So we haven't enforced it like Electric Dreams does. I kind of like to, but I kind of don't want to. They were substantial crashes, so there was no incentive for them to do that. And we do tech them to make sure they're not just tacked on so they'll come off on the first lap.
Right. The other thing I noticed,
we've
Jim,
not
was that
enforced that the wing has to be there if it comes off in a crash.
the other thing I noticed was that the rear tires look quite narrow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. These are spray glue tracks, and they're extremely sticky. And so Ian was the first one to figure out that if you take a 13 millimeter wide F1 tire, which is mounted to a 10 millimeter wide stock wheel, and you narrow the tires down to 10 millimeters, the cars are considerably faster. And so the fast guys now are running narrowed. It's the stock wheel, because the NSR stock wheel is 10 millimeters wide, but the rubber's 13 millimeters wide. So I've narrowed on the outside, so it's whatever half of that, 10.5 millimeters wide. Ian's narrowed it all the way down, so it's literally 10 millimeter wide tire. But it's the stock rubber, just narrowed, and it rolls through the corners and runs considerably faster lap time. So he was the one that figured that out first, and now most of the other people have gone to that, or narrowed tires of some kind. And so that's it for, there's our website. If you want to see, there'll be a race report up. It's not up yet, but it'll be up, I think, today on the whole race. And I did do a video on this on my channel. So we had a good time, and hopefully we will have a great time tomorrow at the 20th anniversary bash party. So that's it for me.
All righty, good stuff.
Cool.
So I got some topics. We've only used up an hour, so we got a whole hour. Does anybody have anything they want to ask about or bring up, or a topic they want to talk about?
I do have a
I want to
topic.
ask Jim a question.
Go ahead, Don.
The cars without wings,
Yes,
could you tell a real difference in the way they handled?
I think you can, yes. I think they're slightly faster without the wings. I have not had mine come off, but at the last race, we had some come off, and there was one car that I was I could catch him without too much problem. His wing came off, and then I had a hard time catching him. So I think there is. And so I think we have to enforce it at some point, whether it's like we do, they have to be firmly attached at the beginning, or like Electric Dreams, it comes off, you got to just tape it back on if you need to. So we can't let them run that way on a consistent basis, or at least they've got to get in a massive crash to get it to come off and, take their chances. So.
What was the topic you wanted to bring up, Jim?
Topic is, we're going through growing pains in Northern California with these new tracks and so on. And we run Group C and F1 on the big tracks. So ride height's not a real big issue. But with the Sidewinder and the Angle Winder cars, where the gears sit below the chassis, it can be an issue with people pushing the limits of the rules, me being one of them. So trying to get the car as low as possible. So what does everybody else, local clubs, do as far as having a ride height rule?
My club doesn't have a ride height rule, so I'm waiting for somebody else to chime in.
When we run retro in 1/24 scale, we always run with a ride height rule.
Right.
32?
No, well, it depends on the class. If the retro cars run 50,000s, when we ran 1/32 scale cars, we ran 50,000s as well, but sometimes we'll run 40,000s under them. And I would say that's probably a good point to stay 1 millimeter.
1 millimeter, yeah.
Yeah.
It
also stops the guys from going to these tiny wheels and tires too.
Yeah, we're looking into that next year to eliminate the 13 millimeter wheel from anything other than what they were designed for.
Mm-hmm.
So that may not happen.
We run 1.2 down here in Tassie on all as an absolute minimum on all the classes, because some of our tracks down here have height changes in them, and anything under 1.2 they tend to bottom out. We had a guy the other night pushing the rules, and when he went to take off on one of the tracks, his car wouldn't go because it was just bottoming out, and it had about 20 thou clearance under it. Yeah, so
well, I mean that's kind of self-policing. If the car just won't work at a lower ride height, you don't have to run a low ride height if you have a low ride height rule.
No. Well, these were NASCARs, so they're long wheelbase, and he was a bit upset Tuesday night when he got canned and said, "No, go and fix it."
Jim, as an alternative to a ride height rule, you could enforce a tire diameter regulation, which is a simpler thing to tech.
Doesn't work.
Yeah,
it is, but then you run an offset pod and you're back to where you were in the first place.
Yeah, there's ways around tire diameters.
Not when you've got the maximum offset in your pod already.
No, true enough.
But not everybody does.
If you just run a clearance rule, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just a matter of a feeler gauge of some sort.
Yeah.
Easy to check.
It was just a suggestion for thought,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my thoughts too. My personal opinion is we should run 032, but I'm kind of I have my opinions and I do a lot of the promoting, but I don't own any of the tracks, so it's kind of.
I think 032. If it's 032 under the gear,
under any part of the car.
Oh, all right. That's probably enough.
Yeah.
I mean, we run 032 under foam tires on all our flexi cars, and that's what the ISRA guys use on cars that have substantially more power and more deflection in the tire. So yeah, 032 is fine as well.
Yeah, we don't have the issue with tires wearing down in one race like you do in foam tires. So if it's 32 at the beginning, it'll probably be 32 at the end. So
yeah.
Are you likely to run into any issues with a feeler gauge, bearing in mind it's metallic, sticking to motor magnets and things?
If you're doing 032, there's plenty of brass out there that's that thickness.
Scale
Yeah.
auto, don't they?
That's easy to find here. 032 brass
Yeah.
stock.
Scale Auto do a feeler gauge, don't they?
Yeah,
They have some ride height gauges here, and I think those are plastic.
no, they're aluminum.
Oh, they're aluminum.
Yeah, they're aluminum.
Mm.
Somewhere in my mess here, I've got one.
Okay, well, thanks for the information. I just want to kind of throw it out and see if anybody has any of the local clubs that you race that have any rules or not. So, but it's a safety rule. We can't have somebody, if there is no ride height rule, coming in with a sidewinder or an angle winder car with a metal gear and putting a gouge in the track. That would just end it for the commercial tracks or be a real pissed off track owner, and rightly so. So we want to nip this in the bud before it happens.
We've just instigated a rule where the track owners down here, it's their responsibility to check the clearance, because one of the guys runs a tape track and he had one of the contestants.
We have to do that, but we've got, and the other reason is we've got 4 or 5 different track owners and we want them all on board with the same rules.
Yeah.
So we don't have to have this car for this or change the tires for that car. So we don't have to, that's part of the reason. The primary reason is to protect the track, but the secondary reason is to get a common set of rules for 4 or 5 different tracks.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
I think I kept hearing Chris wanted to toss something in there.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I guess if nobody else has anything they want to bring up, I'll dig into my bag of topics. Hearing no.
I noticed we have vacationing Paul joining us. Yay, Paul! Yay.
Thanks for.
I did message Greg to say what time would it be here in the Dominican, and I think I'm an hour out, and
I haven't.
Yeah, you're an hour out.
I haven't gotten a message from you.
I've got a question for Paul in the Dominicans,
yeah.
if you can hear me. When you showed the photos of your track, or Paul did last week, what did you use for your brickwork on the scenic parts of your track?
It's paper. On eBay. There's a person from Greece that does all the texture papers. He does everything. Brickwork.
It has got a texture on it.
Yeah, it's definitely textured. And
Yes.
the hardest bit was just lining it all up.
Yes, yeah. No, I've printed it out and done it on mine, but over the 7 or 8 years my track's been running, it's now needs replacing. That's why I asked. Yours looks so good.
Yeah, it's just fine little bobbles.
Yes.
So just go into your local hardware store and look at the plain textured rolls of wallpaper, and you'll see.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it is. Wallpaper.
I have a question. I got a question for Paul.
Thanks.
Go on then.
How long are you in the Dominican for?
We come back just before till the 17th.
Okay, so second part of that is, why the hell are you on this thing tonight? Don't you have anything better to do being in the Dominican?
The wife is sitting behind me. So
Jesus.
Answer that.
He only came on so I could give him a hard time about losing to PSV.
Man.
Your wife's going there, and they're telling you to get off the dang chat.
Go get yourself a drink with a little umbrella in it or something, and put your
I
feet in the
don't
sand,
know.
for God's sake.
I had one.
I think he's had so many that he thought he'd join the chat. I think that's why he's on the chat.
God, after Arsenal's performance, he's probably done nothing else but drink for the last week.
Oh, we're playing tomorrow night as well, so you might eat that well, sunshine.
I think we're talking about football now. Is that what's happening? I don't know.
Yeah, he gives me a hard time about my support for Tottenham, and I give him a hard time about his support for Arsenal.
You only squeezed a good result last week anyway.
Well, at least we got the result.
All right. Thanks for joining us in spite of you being on a vacation, Paul. So I'll bring up a topic. Here we go. Is it possible to have too much guide rotation? Could it be beneficial to have a stop so that the car bounces back into line to carry on? Is there an optimal angle that the car should swing out before hitting the stop? And do manufacturers have any accepted standard in this regard? I think that last part is a no, but I guess then the question is, should there be one, and if there is an optimal angle for guide rotation?
The basic answer is no, you can have tons of guide rotation. The biggest cause of broken guides and broken chassis posts in plastic chassis cars, which you hear about all the time, is insufficient guide rotation. So especially most of the cars are designed to run with magnets and they don't slide. So you really don't need any guide rotation. The car just follows the guide around. As soon as you take the magnet out and the car starts going side to side, once you get a tank slapper and you reach the end of the guide rotation and the car's still sliding, one of two things can happen. Either you can break the guide blade or you can break the guide tongue post. Years ago, some of the early cars, the monograms and stuff like that, the guides would spin right around, which was an issue because you've got the lead wires that would, tuck themselves underneath. The car would go backwards or go all over the place, and you'd end up ripping the guide leads out of the. We used to screw them in with little eyelets and stuff like that. So. To keep your guide wires in, you want some sort of a stop. But on every single plastic car, Ninko slotted, they will not get hurt with another 15 or 20 degrees of guide rotation in either direction.
So if one would say there's a limit, it's basically the point at which the wires are going to get torn out.
Yeah.
So
I would say that there's another limit, and that is when the car's at 90 degrees to the slot and won't drive forward anymore.
Yeah,
that's a thought.
Yeah, but Scout Electric's done those Mad Hatters and the stock cars that used to spin around anyway.
That's true for drift cars.
Right.
Yeah. I hate those. Those guides are terrible.
Yeah, I've done posts on several of the forums on how to increase the guide rotation on lots of chassis, and it's dead simple, and it makes a massive difference. And you'll never buy another guide or never buy another chassis plate on a plastic car again.
What about self-centering guides? Is that something that anyone should consider or no?
Well, if you come out a lot, it's probably not a bad idea. If you keep the car in the slot, it really doesn't, make a whole bunch of difference. You can, by putting the guide in correctly and routing the wires correctly, you can get a guide to self-center. It's not vitally important to have a self-centering guide, but it is vitally important to have a guide that does not stick or is rough in its rotation.
The reason I asked, Chris, is I think it was Cox that had that little sort of
rubber band
mustache at the end. Yeah, with an I guess they used like a rubber band or something.
Yeah, and SCX, I think, I'm not sure if their latest cars are, but all of their previous line of cars had self-centering springs. Carrera has self-centering.
Carrera have them, yeah. Strong ones on the Carrera cars.
Yeah.
Those are, if you consider the design philosophy behind these things, these are toys for kids. Essentially toys for kids. So if the kid can sort of or put the car on the track in line with the slot and it goes in, that's good. If they have to turn the car over and figure out that you've got to actually straighten the guide and put it back in and away you go. So for, Christmas morning slot car sets, a self-centering guide is a great idea.
It also helps a racer when Marshall needs to marshal a car. If the guide is already, it can save you a few seconds in that off that we all aspire to not have, but sometimes still do.
Yeah. And that's why, like Chris said, is if your guide is correctly installed and set up so that it rotates freely, and your wires are installed such that they make the freely rotating guide return more or less back to center, then you've accomplished your goal. What you don't necessarily want is some hard spring or rubber band that reduces the it messes up the way the car drives because it's always trying to keep the guide straight rather than letting it turn. I'm sure there's a better way to explain that.
With some of the stock production cars, it's actually very difficult to achieve because the wire just doesn't, the wire types they use, PVC coated and minimally numbered of strands, basically cheap wire, doesn't lend itself to being springy, and it can be quite difficult. And in those cases, the advice there would be to fit a silicone-based wire.
What do you have there, Krister?
And Chris,
I only show the car we won the Swedish Championship on long distance, and we have that. This is from 2014 or something like that. Michael Landrud was very upset after the race. I think we mashed him and his team with 70 laps over 6 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
So we always do that with our cars.
Yeah. Yep. You can there's several ways to loop or crisscross. The
No,
lead
you have to
wires
do
get-
that. Oh, you have to do that. I do, and then I can see if I can pull this chassis from the.
I think what he's saying is he's getting his wires in like the heart-shaped fashion where they come in from the sides.
It's silicone tires, but we open this one so you can see what we do.
I mean, the chassis that Chris showed earlier had a pretty nice wiring setup. It looks like it did the job.
We used to put loops on ours, on the old slot cars.
Yeah, that's the one.
There's various ways you can. This was just easy for me to crisscross them. You can run this wire and then put a loop in it down here and a loop down this way. There's all kinds of ways to play silly bugger with your lead wires that'll self-center the guide. Yeah.
I think Krista's ready.
Yep. Look like this.
Oh, that's intriguing. You've got those wired to what would look to be the opposite sides of the guides.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's go position middle.
And then that's helped a lot because halfway down, he's got some shrink tubing or something behind that, which stops.
Oh, you see what I have done.
Yeah.
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 There's another way of doing that too, and that's this way. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, you can do that too.
The wires are right together and they come right over the top of the guide before they split out to go either side.
Yep.
So the flexibility of the wires is basically what's keeping it in line.
Yeah.
You have to go back. Otherwise, what you do is it's have to be in the center.
Yeah.
So
in
Yeah, the later cars, we used to run 2 wires to each side.
Right.
In the early days, we all did, we all did that because the wires would break.
Yeah.
And that's why, as you could see on that car, I don't have any soldering up the front. What I basically do is I strip off the end of the wire and I pass it through the guide and I fold it back and then I press the braid in.
Yeah.
So you used to have the brass bits, didn't you? You used to push into the end of the
Yeah,
guide.
I don't even use those because I don't want any solder up the front of the of the wire at all because that's where it breaks.
Yeah.
This way it doesn't break ever.
Yeah. The key to any of this, guys, is you can use whatever wires you want, but if your guide is not set properly and spins smoothly and freely from side to side, the wires aren't going to help you. So you got to make sure your guide rotates nice and smoothly.
Yeah, there's a bit of hubbub in my club on the last series we were running because one of the guys, his guide kept sticking to one side, and we're like, you got to fix this. This is costing you because most of us make sure that our guide moves freely and more or less goes to center. So when you come off, you can usually put the car back on. Every time he came out, we were like trying to put the car back on, and they were like, "Oh yeah, he's guide sticks," and then we'd fix it and put it back on the track. So he kept saying, you really need to fix this so that we can stop having this issue. You're losing laps because of this. And he's like, no, it drives great. I don't want to mess with it. Like, okay, bro, but you're losing laps because you're making that decision. And my dogs are having fun.
I thought they just killed the postman.
I'm house sitting my son's dog. They're just playing, but he's a little growly and noisy when they're playing. Sounds like he's mad, but he's not.
Just throw them a steak. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just throw them another postman.
So it looks like we answered that question. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that topic? Or
No, but I've got a technical question I want to ask about. When I'm running my digital cars, I can set up my I can set up my braking for my analog cars too on this track. But I noticed that you guys use a lot of speed controllers that have braking adjustments on the speed controllers and stuff. When you're braking in an analog situation, what is actually happening to cause the braking?
Same thing that's happening in your digital cars. It's just happening in the controller rather than in the chip.
Okay, but I mean, okay, yes,
John,
the actual
yeah.
physics of it, or the
Go for it,
science of
Dennis.
it, the science of it is that when you hit the brakes on the controller, there is a short circuit created across the motor of the slot car.
Yep.
And effectively, it turns what used to be a permanent magnet electric motor into a permanent magnet electricity generator. Because now what's turning the wheels what's turning the motor is the inertia of the car through the tires and the gears is turning the motor because it's not being driven. And so anything like that with permanent magnets and a coil that's moving inside it is going to generate a voltage.
Right.
And it generates that voltage through this short circuit, which is very, very low resistance. So it dissipates that energy very, very quickly. Now, in order to reduce that amount of brake, what happens on the controller, and I would presume inside the control unit of a digital system, we start introducing small amounts of resistance into that short circuit, which takes longer for the reverse generated voltage to dissipate, and therefore the car coasts a little further.
Got it.
And that's basically all that it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know, John, that as Dennis you can't add brakes, you can only take them away.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So
Every car has an inherent amount of braking, and the controller or the system or the controls on your digital system can only reduce that. They can't increase that. That said, there's a difference between one controller and the next, because there are differences in the internal resistances of those circuits. You never get a full-blown short circuit. There's always some resistance in that circuit.
Yeah,
and from one make of controller to the next, you're going to find differences in the amount of braking on the same car.
Well, I've even noticed that if I take a car and put it on my digital track at a certain braking, then I flip the switch and put it on my analog track, its braking it's close, but it's different.
I can explain that, but I'll rewind a little bit and explain that for the digital cars, it's using a piece of electronics referred to as a MOSFET. It's basically like pulse width modulation braking. So it's basically just, doing quick modulation of the resistance.
Duty cycle, yeah.
Yeah, duty cycle.
Yeah.
So more or less means more or less braking. So so when you did that comparison, it was a digital car, right? It was a
Yes.
Carrera digital car.
Yes.
Okay. So a Carrera digital car, when running in analog mode, which is what you did your comparison test with,
Right.
always has 100% braking. The chip in the car is going to make it have 100% braking, regardless of what the outside source of braking is.
Right.
But then in your case, you have a chip lane analog mode where a chip is actually controlling the analog power. So it's introducing its own duty cycle with its MOSFET. So it's going to be, I'm not sure if it's additive or subtractive or whatever the case may be, but it's going to be different because you have two chips. One of them is actually in digital mode, controlling an adjustable amount of breaks, and the other one's in analog mode, having a full amount of breaks. I think it's basically just going to be the full breaks of the analog mode of the Carrera chip, no matter what.
No, because you have a kind of a pilot system, at least on the tech system that I have, that you can adjust the braking zones for your analog car as well.
Yeah, no, I know how it works.
Oh, okay.
You're basically telling the digital chip in the tech slots box.
I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah,
so,
I got you.
Yeah. So for a regular analog car with no digital chip in it, you would have 10 variations of brake strength based on the 10 steps of braking that you're assigning with
Gotcha.
the
Okay.
MCU. But with that digital car, when it is functionally on an analog track, it's going to be 100% brakes.
Got it.
So even if you set the digital car in digital mode to half brake power, 50%, and you set the tech slots control chip to be half brakes, the digital car thinks it's on an analog track and it's going to put full brakes. So it's basically the digital car and analog. The digital car is going to more or less act the same way, whether it's on a tech slots powered track or a pure analog track, and it's always going to have 100% brakes. You can't turn it up or down.
Well,
so here's how the easiest way to compare.
You can't turn it up. I understand that, but you can turn it down.
You can't turn it down. It's going to be 100% braking power on that car because that's how Carrera digital chips work in analog mode. It just is.
Okay.
So to compare that, what I would suggest is take that car that you're doing with the tech slots in analog mode. So you're doing a comparison, right? Hold the thumb plunger down or trigger or whatever, full blast, and then let go. And listen to how quickly the wheels come to a stop. You're holding the rear wheels up off the track. Just go and let it go, right? Then go full blast and lift the car off the track. Because in that situation, it's completely losing power.
At the same time,
the chip loses power, which means the chip should not be doing very much, if any, braking. Now, I haven't tested this myself, but that's the way a real analog car would behave. When the controller is controlling brakes, it's doing its job. But when you lift the car up off the track, there's no short or anything.
Sure. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you can't really compare a digital car with itself in analog mode on pretty much any system because the chip is going to do things differently on digital versus how it does it on analog.
But I was just surprised at how close it was in the two formats.
Did you have what was your brake setting on in digital?
Well, I'd have to go back and set it, but it would be like, say I put it halfway, okay, and I'm going down the straightaway and I lift. The digital car will have about, I don't know, that much runoff and it stops. Flip the little switch in the bottom of it. Now I'm running analog. It does, and it has just a hair more, but it's very close.
Then I would suggest in digital mode, set the braking power to 1.
Okay.
If whatever the lowest setting is, and then compare that to how much it brakes in analog mode.
Okay.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a tech slots, so I can only compare on actual analog versus actual digital.
Okay.
But yeah, experimenting, science is fun.
Along those lines of brake, everything else being equal, will a motor with more torque have more brake?
Yes.
Usually, yeah.
And also the gear ratio plays into that.
I said all else being equal. Everything equal except torque. The motor with more torque.
Yeah, but the gear ratio is a direct.
Again.
He said everything equal, Wayne.
Yeah, but how much torque?
The only difference being torque. The only difference is torque, Wayne. Everything else is the same. The only difference is torque. That's it.
And what changes torque?
No
gear
other
ratios.
differences. However the motor was manufactured.
What changes torque is the strength of the magnetic field and the number of winds on the armature.
Right.
Right. What changes torque at the wheels
is gear ratio.
It's gear ratio.
Yeah.
And size and diameter of the rear
Oh, and-
tires,
yeah,
which, is,
and-
which factors into gear ratio. It's part of gear ratio.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, here's a question for you. Is it possible to have the same type of motor have different torque and the same RPMs?
What do you mean?
Like same can, same motor stack, same magnet stack, you know, just changing whatever needs to change for torque. Would
Yes.
still be the same RPMs.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what controls RPMs? I thought that was windings.
It's windings, it's the magnetic strength, and it's the timing advance on the commutator.
Timing.
Yeah.
So
Timing.
so an expert could change only the torque. If they knew what they were doing, they could change only the torque.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could do it. I mean, it's probably quite a big deal if you're trying to change the torque of a motor without changing its maximum RPM. You're probably going to do things like putting on more turns of thinner wire and then upping the commutator timing ever so slightly.
More timing.
So, you know, it's not something that you could, I don't think that you could take one motor and by just making whatever adjustments we as regular racers make, affect the torque only without changing the other things.
Right. Are you talking more about modern, like typical modern motors, Craig?
I'm just trying to see if there's a way to physically make Brian's question a reality. Like everything else is equal, but everything else is equal in every possible way, except one motor is made such that torque is more.
Well, realistically, no, because we can't modify these motors. But if you have an open motor where you can change winds and everything else,
But for example, if you look at the specs of a Thunderslot 21,500 motor as opposed to an NSR 21,500 motor, as opposed to a Slaughter 21,500, even various different generations of one motor, you will find that within the same nominal speed range, the torque has changed.
That was kind of where my question was pointed. You know, a 21,000 RPM motor from one manufacturer with 160 grams of torque versus a 21,000 RPM from another manufacturer with 185 grams of torque. Should I just naturally expect better brakes out of the motor with the higher torque rating? And
no, because you don't know how they're rating them, because manufacturers do their own ratings.
Yeah, that too. But
again, you're complicating the question. It's you know,
if they rate them the same, all other things being equal,
more brakes.
Yeah, more torque means more brakes.
Yeah.
However, again, if you're talking about what you will experience when driving the car, it's not just how much braking the motor can generate. It's now also the effect of the weight of the car and the gear ratios that you're worried about.
Yeah, I understand all that. Yeah, that has a play in it as well.
But yes, with all other things being equal, if you took a 160 gram centimeter torque 21,500 RPM motor and you geared it exactly the same, and you put it in a car and you got a particular distance for braking, and then you take that motor out, put in another one with 180 gram centimeters of torque, and put it in the same car with the same gearing and the same weight and the same tires under the same conditions, the motor with the higher torque should give you better braking, shorter distance to stop.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
More acceleration and more braking, Brian. That said, there's many cars on many tracks that don't get better lap times just because they have more torque in the motors. Sometimes it's easier to drive consistently with a little bit softer motor. So your answer is...
He's not asking that question.
No, I get that though, because I don't typically drive with full brakes, but I do find my cars that have better brakes give me a little more flexibility in how much brake I can tune in or out. You know, if I've got a car that's got crap brakes from the get-go, you know, there's only so much I can do. If I can't add brake if it isn't there to begin with. I can get rid of brake, but adding it's a different story. So hence the question.
All right, but there's a couple of other effects here when you're talking about brakes, and one of them is the condition of your braids. Right.
Braids, did you say?
Yes,
Pickup braids.
because remember that the connection between the controller and the motor is through the braids and the wire in the car. Okay, so if your braids are dirty or they're not properly adjusted, or you don't have sufficient pressure on them on the rails of the track, or the track rails are dirty, you're not going to get as much brake as you would if everything was clean and tidy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that is always something to remember. The number of times I've seen cars with no brakes, and the first thing you do, clean the braid, reset the braid, brakes are perfect.
And I have seen that. Sometimes, the first half dozen laps, the car seems not to have the brakes, and then, they knock the tarnish off the braid or whatever, and things improve. So
that's right.
I understand that as well.
Good.
When you see lots of pictures of different proxy cars and they turn them upside down when they get before the first race, they'll show a top and bottom of the car. I'm absolutely staggered at how many guys send in a car with braids that were gone a year ago, let alone, that's one of the, as Dennis says, one of the most important things in the car. And you can change them, clean them constantly.
Yeah, but it still goes on my track, so I sent it in.
Well,
it goes. Lighter fluid is one of the preferred fluids to clean them. Do you have a tool or something that works?
Toothbrush.
Yeah, toothbrush.
Toothbrush is a great tool.
Toothbrush, yeah.
Preferably not the one that you use in the evenings before you go to bed.
Use your wife's toothbrush or your neighbor's
toothbrush.
Or your wife's toothbrush, yeah.
And some guys have a little paddle with a slot, so they put it under the braid so that they can hold it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah.
So I want to come back to something that Dennis was talking about in my very, very initial question on this. When you release your trigger and you're braking, whether you have braking set or whatnot, is the way the mechanism works, is that why you don't get chatter in the rear wheels like you do, say, in a radio control car that you've got a brake that's working?
You can change that on radio control cars.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I can get chatter under braking in a slot car very easily.
Oh, really?
Yeah. On my track, they chatter like hell if you've got too much brake. Depends on what's happening with the chatter is that you're braking so hard that you locked up the rear axle, and then the thing will and then the thing will chatter and bounce.
Didn't you have ABS brakes on your 8 control
on my 8
car?
scale? I had rear wheel brakes only. I didn't bother with 4-wheel brake ever.
You didn't use ABS?
No.
No.
Way before that's way after my time, I'm afraid.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's one thing that I always try to, when somebody's driving around the track and they've got their braids are obviously not correctly formed for the track. After they say, "Hey Greg, can you check my braids?" and I do the twist and straighten thing for sport track or vice versa, I'm like, take the next lap slow because it's gonna drive different. Your acceleration is different and your braking is different. So
what kind of controllers you use, everybody?
True speed.
Slotted,
Okay.
True speed. The Falcos.
Falco is
Frank and Slot.
Frank and Slot. Oh, well, I use a lot of different ones because I do a lot of different styles of racing. But 1/32 scale guys at Electric Dreams, a lot of those guys are using the Falcos, the latest Falco DD304 or whatever it is. But and it's a really, really good controller.
Yeah.
DS are pretty good. In my club, a lot of the guys use the Professor Motor 2-knob controllers, the DS 2-knob controllers, a couple of third eyes.
Yeah. I mean, for plastic track racing, for club racing, a well sorted out and clean and well adjusted Professor Motor is just fine.
I raced that long time ago, Professor Motors. I think it was very good.
Yeah.
For the time they were.
And, you know, again, it depends on the motors. I've got a couple of Falcos, I've got a couple of Professor motors, I've got a Ruddock, I've got a Karstein.
Karsten have lots of types. Yeah.
Depends what you're doing. You know, would I use my Ruddock or my Karstein if I'm racing Scalextric cars? Not likely.
Yeah. Well.
All right, Mr. Weber has his hand up. Are you you want to ask about or talk about the thing on your backdrop there, or what are we doing?
Yes, that's correct. This is something I came across on eBay. It's called an MPL decoding chip. Are you familiar with it? Anybody familiar with them? Have you used them?
I believe that's for Carrera Digital.
Yes.
Yep, I've not used them. John, have you used one? Mr. Crawley? No. I mean, there's a few Facebook groups that I'm on, and people use those, as well as the FT Slot Tech or Slotnik or whatever.
Slot Technic.
Unless that's the thing that the guy is putting in the poly cars that I was talking about 2 weeks ago when I was with y'all. You know, he had
I think the MPL is bigger than the Slot Technic. I think the Slot Technic is.
Okay, I think it's Slot Technic in the smaller of the two.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good.
I think that's a real penny. I don't think that's a plastic penny or something else, but it's pretty small. The chip's pretty small. It's pretty thin too.
Yep. Yeah. One of the nice things that has happened recently is that digital chip manufacturers have realized that they can do other things than that giant silver can capacitor thing that's on a lot of the older chip models. Like the Scalextric ones for the longest time have had that giant can on there. And
the real problems with them right now is the size of wiring that goes to them and having to deal with your wires to the chips.
Sorry, John, take over.
How so, John? What's the issue?
Well, if you're dealing, like, say, for example, with the Polycar or with we were trying to do on the NSR, put that new chip that this friend of mine was working on into it. The wires themselves take up so much room simply because of their size. Look at what Don is holding up there. See, it's just a matter of you need thinner and thinner and thinner wires.
That's both chips right there, the MPL and the Slot Tech, if you want to compare sizes to them next to each other.
About the same. I saw a guy do I think it was for the Slot Technic, where he shaved off a big chunk of it because he shaved off the connectors and then soldered the wires straight to the board.
I've done that on the slotted C43 chips often. That little white connector that takes the Scalextric piece, cut the whole damn thing off if you're trying to get it into some other car that's not you use it.
Yeah.
I think there's a modification they do. They do away with the lighting accommodations on the chip. If they're using it in a Formula One car or something that doesn't need lighting, they just cut them off.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. This MPL chip apparently doesn't come with the wires attached, so that would be a real thrill to put that thing together for me anyway. I
think the new ones do, but this one I bought 2 or 3 years ago. And they didn't come with the wires then.
This is a photograph that was with a gallery of photographs on eBay from this particular seller. And so this is the only one that showed the wires, but anyway. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a royal pain to have to put those wires on if you don't have the right equipment.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're through hole. You know, that's easy.
Yeah, at least they're through hole, but even so, it's still. I mean, it's like those little lighting chips that Slotted make for lighting kits, and every damn wire's got to be put on that. You know, there's all the power wires and the wires for the brakes and the wires for the headlights. You know.
Yeah.
Well, in the 24-hour races in the Digital Club in England, I know some of you guys have raced in that. do the lights have to work through the chip, or can they be independent of the chip?
Wayne?
I don't race digital.
Yeah, they can be independent.
As long as they work, right?
The only benefit of running them through the chip is that the SCP controller has a button to turn the lights on and off, and you never need to turn the lights off.
So you have that on the controller, you can turn it off and on.
Yeah.
That's good. We have that, not that in 124, in analog.
Yeah, there's no way to tell the chip to be on or off. Pretty much is only digital. Carrera Digital 132 and Carrera Digital 124 have that feature built into the chip. And then the slotted has to have the, well, I believe the chip still controls whether or not it's powering the lights, but then the lights are powered by.
When I raced enduro race in Europe or whatever, the problem is that we have to have the lights, otherwise we have to go into the pit on the race and fix the problem.
Well, it's like the Carrera chip will actually flash the lights when you need fuel. So they've got some warning stuff built into their chip and lighting system.
And a lot of the other lighting chips, the ones that are used on analogs, they flash the lights as soon as you have no power to the chip from the track. In other words, if you've come out of the slot, then the thing will start flashing its lights.
No, we have not that. We are not allowed that.
The Z Machines ones are like that, and the slot ones are like that.
Some of them, but not all.
I've got a slotted Porsche, the kind that ran at Indy. It's the yellow DHL, and when you take it off the track, the LED lights continue to stay on.
Mm-hmm.
They'll stay on for like, I don't know, a half minute.
They have a capacitor that's storing the energy.
Yeah, that's mandatory for the classes of racing that I do that are digital. They must stay on because we race in the dark. And if you deslot and the lights go out, the marshal can't find the car.
It's a good point, yeah.
Somebody else will find the car.
A question now. In the race in England, Tamar is there and still racing there in 132?
Yes.
From England? Yeah.
Yes.
He's a very good driver and very good builder.
I'm glad you said that.
Oh, tomorrow?
Yeah, he is. I have raced against him many times in 124.
I race as his teammate as a rule.
Yeah, he is very good driver. If you meet him, say hello from me.
And I expect to see him in January.
Do that. Say hello from me.
Will do.
Thank you.
I talked my vacation over with my wife, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be in the UK during the next 24-hour event. But, you know, maybe I'll still be able to swing by and say hi to Paul or somebody who.
Well, our condolences on losing the coin toss.
You know, we decided to air closer to springtime than wintertime. So I think that was a wise choice.
What's wrong with UK in the winter?
Same thing that's wrong with Pacific Northwest in the winter. Cold and wet the whole time.
Apparently you find something wrong with the UK in the winter, Paul.
Yeah.
Says the guy on the beach in the Dominican Republic.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what, right? Even in the rain, we've been sitting out on the, because we're used to it.
But it's warm. It's warm rain.
Yeah, it's like a shower. It's lovely.
Hey, Dennis?
Yes, sir.
Didn't the Pumpkin Enduro last week have the chips where the lights would flash if the car came off the track?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, those were Z Machines lighting kits that I fitted. Oh, that was another race that's come and gone that we could have reported on, although I wasn't there. But that was the annual Pumpkin Enduro that happens at Electric Dreams. It's an invitation race. You have to qualify to be eligible because there's only 6 teams. It's a 2-hour Enduro. There are only 6 teams, and they take, you know, the previous winners are automatically eligible. The winners of the Christmas Enduro automatically eligible. And then from there on, it goes down the points, the overall points for the year from the racing series. So they had 6 teams of 2 guys. And the cars were 6 NSR McLaren 720Ss, the GT3 car, all prepared by Andrea Noviello at NSR, all with special livery, lots of little bats and witches and pumpkins and things on them in different colors, obviously. And then I fitted Z Machines light kits to all of them, and they ran them. And it seems that they had a really good race. I wasn't there.
They did stream it. It's up on
it's streamed. It's out on Electric Dreams website, so you can see it there. If you can see through the smoke. Marco has his love affair with the smoke machine that he uses to fill the whole place. And the reason for the lights is that by the time they start the race, it's 7 p.m. and they switch off all the lights in the store, apart from the lights that are in the display cabinets around the edges of the store, and the reflection of the monitors that are there. That's the only light you've got. The turn marshals all have a little flashlight that they use, and so the fact that the lights flicker when the car comes off the track is very important.
No, we are not allowed that from the same manufacturer. No, we can't do that.
Why?
We have flashing lights. I was in Germany, I think 2011, and ordered wrong equipment to my car. And they say, I think it was Matthias Parke say that you can't have that, Kirsten. It's not okay. So therefore, I have to change everything in the car. And no, today, this car was running them on that track 2011. So the Austria car.
That looks really easy to get the lights into.
Yeah, lovely, especially 24.
You can do that. It's gloss fever body. It's not problem with that. But no, it was no.
With the 32 scale cars that we use for digital endurance, the lights are a real battle to get them in and working nicely, and B, resilient enough. I've lost races, last 2 races I've competed in, I've lost due to light failures during the race.
To get them crash resistant.
Yeah.
The thing that amazes me about the 24-hour races over there is when you stand on the driver's dais and look across that gym, and there's that long track. How you ever keep your car in sight? I mean, it's in the darkness. It's amazing.
Oh, you know your own car. It can be tricky if you drive through a melee where a marshal is attending to several cars at once or something like that. But a lot of teams fit a single identifier LED that can be in the cockpit, for example, and you can choose its color. Some cars illuminate the numbers, they call them number shields, the numbers on the doors.
Yeah.
You put LED behind those, and you can see from both sides which.
When you're going down that straightaway in the dark, and all of a sudden you have to brake for that turn. I mean, it's one thing to do it with lights on in the gym.
Okay, so
it's strange. It's strange because I have drive a lot of endurance race, and you go faster in the night, and I don't understand why.
I do.
That's strange.
Be more careful.
That's exactly it, Greg.
No. I don't know why.
The turn called the Mulsanne kink, which is 85% of the way down the main straight, actually has an LED in the edge of the track, so you can find it. And then it's rhythm.
I raced in Norway, in Oslo. We have a 12-hour endurance race, and the 2.5 hour that was left after we had eat, Hammer was there and everybody in 124 scale, and I say to Leif, my guy who owned the track with me today, that okay, shall we put us up from 6 and up? Yeah, drive you the rest of the time. And I did. And it was in the night with lights and everything. And I did, I think, through 3-4 tenths of a second faster. When if we compare to if we had lights on the place, it's crazy. I don't know why. And that's the same situation every time when we have races in Germany too, or in Sweden, long distance races.
Sometimes I think that when you're racing in the dark, the first thing is you can't see the danger. So you probably tend to be a little braver. The other thing is you can't really see much of your car except the lights, and so whether the tail's wagging around or not, you can't tell that. So you get a rhythm to drive the car, and you drive that. I can remember doing the same thing with 1/12 scale electric radio control cars at night.
112, yeah.
You drive them faster at night than you do in the day.
Yeah. It's strange.
I've set track records on the circuit racing with 10th electric touring cars at 11 p.m. at night under floodlights.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Well, some of that, particularly if it's outdoors, is a matter of temperature and
moisture,
things like that, right? If it's cooler, you're probably getting better performance.
Yeah.
So
tires grip better and the motor runs faster.
Yeah.
It's called cold.
Unless you're in Phoenix. I raced in Las Vegas. I raced in Vegas one time at 11 o'clock at night. It was still 95 degrees.
Okay.
Oh, well, I remember racing it in Sicily, where we didn't start racing until 8 o'clock at night because it was so damn hot during the day. And it was like 40 something degrees during the day, Celsius. And when we started racing, it was 32 or so. And we raced through to about 3 in the morning and then try and sleep for a while.
But then was it radio control?
Yeah, 1/8 scale.
In Italy?
Messina, Sicily, 1992.
Okay.
The last of the World Team Championships.
What class was that?
It was 1/8 scale on road.
Okay.
3-man teams. It was won by the Italians with the BMT.
BMT. Okay. Yeah.
The guys had 3-speed transmissions that time. It was something special.
The first time you drive a car down the straightaway at night, it looks like it's just flying.
Yeah, I know. It's strange.
On that, I'm gonna end the recording. If you got this far, please like, subscribe, watch more, let the ads play. The more revenue we get, the sooner we can do that big giveaway. And as always, come and join us on a live show. It's a whole lot of fun, and we're gonna keep chatting about all kinds of things after I hit the stop button. Till next week, everybody, bye. Bye.
Bye.